Hi everyone. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Japanese stab binding books. This is another option for your project and they're actually a lot of fun and very cool looking. So here you can see I have one Japanese stab binding book that I've already created, and what makes this really cool is the binding right here that you do, and it also has a hinge on it that allows it to open and close without kind of ruining your pages. The pictures that I'm going to add to my book are going to have to determine my book size. If you're not adding any prints to a book, then you have a little bit more leeway. But the prints I'm adding, the artwork I'm going to add is 6 inches by 6 inches, so it's square. Now I want my actual pages, my paper inside, to be a little bit more than 6 by 6 because I want it to be have a little bit of a border all the way around it. So I'm going to make my cover just a little bit larger than that. So let's say if my actual pages in my book are 6.5 by 6.5, I want the surface cover of my Japanese book to be 7 by 7. Now, remember that we have a hinge on it. So we're actually going to add an inch to that. So I'm going to make this main cover part 7 by 7, but then I'm also going to cut a 1-inch strip that will be the hinge of my book. So this part will be 7 by 7, and this part will be 1 inch wide by 7 inches tall. It's the exact same height as the rest of my cover. So here's my cover, and you can see I have the actual area that's going to be bound over here, and then this is the surface area of my cover. My paper that I cut is actually going to extend all the way from the edge of this side to the edge of this side. So once you factor in the 1/4 inch space that we leave between these two pieces of cardboard, our paper, remember we said it's going to be 6.5 by 6.5 over here, but then we're going to add 1/4 inch to the length and then an inch. So it'll be 6.5 plus 1/4, which would be 6 3/4 plus an inch, which is 7 3/4. Now your sizes will be different. They might be different. They probably will be different. I need 2 pieces of paper, one for the front and one for the back. I just need to make sure that they are larger than my 2 cover pieces. I also want to make sure, well, these 2 cover pieces put together, because I need it to overlap quite a bit, which I'll show you in a second so that you can keep that in mind as you're choosing your paper. The other thing you need are 2 pieces of Tyvek, which are just pieces of this. It's like fabric paper almost that you wrap around houses when they're getting finished. It's like this waterproof, untearable paper. You can't rip it. And we're going to use that in our seam. We're actually going to glue it down so that kind of between our 2 pieces, like this, we're going to glue it down on there so that it acts as a reinforcement. Okay, so you've just kind of watched me really quickly, literally, cut this piece of paper. This is the cover for my cover, basically. Here's my cover. And I put it on this piece of paper, and what you saw me do is I rolled over the left side because I wanted to make sure it was long enough that it covered this entire seam. And then some. I made it plenty long, so it comes all the way to here. Then what I did is I drew the corners of my pieces on here, leaving a 1-inch border on all the other sides of my paper. So you can kind of see my little corner marks there. Next, what I did is I went into these 2 corners on the right hand side, and I cut a slight angle to that corner I had drawn, just a slight angle. And that is because I am going to be folding this over like that and creating a nice seam there. So once I have this all cut out the way I want it, oh, and then over here what I did is I cut so that there was a slight angle here, but then I cut this part all straight across, okay? So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by using my adhesive. You'll probably use rubber cement, and I'm going to brush on adhesive on this entire book surface. So I'm just gonna brush it on so it goes all the way across. I want to make sure it creates a really nice seal between the paper and the cardboard. And then I'm going to set it on here so that the seam is over here by this long side, okay? Now, next I'm going to use this really important tool, which is a bone folder. If you watch any of the other videos, I kind of talked about how important a bone folder was. These are really important for bookmaking because they allow us to fold this over and make a really strong seal with this flat surface. So you want to make sure you keep your bone folder as clean as you can. If you get glue on it, make sure you wash it off. I'm going to put my adhesive here. Okay, a few things that I've done. So this is my cover. I changed covers, you'll notice. I have my front cover with my seam on it and my back cover, which basically looks exactly the same. Now, something I did do is that I added this plain sheet of paper right here. Now, this can be decorative paper, it can be white, it can be black, but this basically just gives it a nice finished look. All of my sheets of paper cut for the inside. This has a lot more sheets than you might need, which is okay. And when I put them together, they look kind of like this. So I line up this end so that they're all even. Now that means there's going to be a little bit of a gap in the other parts, which is okay. I kind of want that. The other thing you need to make sure is that on this end they're even, but they're also centered from top to bottom. So I'm just kind of shift them a little bit. I want to make sure they go all the way to the end, and then I'm going to clamp them because I'm about to drill some holes into them. So I'll put a clamp on this side. Actually, I might bring it over a little bit so I can make my holes more even. And a clamp on this side. The next thing you need to decide is how many holes you're going to create for your stab binding. You have to have an even number in order for it to work out correctly, but I would say anywhere from, this one I'm going to put 6. This one right here has 4, which you can see is a lot less. It actually looks like a lot less. It doesn't go all the way to the ends. This book that I've made has 4 as well, so it goes closer to the ends, but it's a little bit more spread out. On this one, I'm actually going to make 6. So what you do is you're going to put a protective surface under here, and you're actually going to use one of the hand drills, which are the ones that wind, or the electric drill that I have, and you're going to drill an even number of holes. My suggestion to you would be to use a ruler and space them out as evenly as you can with a ruler. Okay, next I'm going to use this needle. It's just a large darning needle is what we call it. And I have a piece of special binding thread. It's like waxed binding thread. I'm actually going to go around the end of my book. This is how I figure out how much thread I need. I'm going to go around it 1, 2, 3 times. All determined, I'm going to actually thread my needle. And I'm not going to go down all the way. I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail so that it stays on there. But I'm going to make sure I'm only going to have 1 thread going through at a time. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to choose now it doesn't matter which way you start, this way or this way, it doesn't matter. But we're going to start with the second from the top hole. And I'm going to go through, it doesn't matter which way you go through, from the front or the back, but I'm going to pull it until I have a little bit of thread hanging here. And I just want to make sure I keep a hold of that so it doesn't go through. I'm actually going to go around. So I'm coming in the back. I'm going to go around and through again. And then I'm in the back. I'm coming from the back again. So then I'm going to go to the next. I'm going to go around and through and next. That's what you should always remember. Now, here's the tricky part. I'm to the end. If I go to the next, there's nothing here. So I actually go to the next, but I pretend like there's a hole up here, and I'm going, basically I'm just going around to the top. Okay, and that's what's going to keep it together up here. So again, around, through, and I've just turned myself around, so now I'm going to start going down the book, around, through, oops, I'm caught. It's hard to do this sideways here. Around, through, and next hole. You want to make sure that you're pulling your string tight between each one. So there's next. What's next? Around, through, and next hole. See? Around, through, next, around, through, next, around, through, and next. Okay, here I've gotten to the bottom, so it's, remember I said it was gonna be string, blank, but then if I turn it around, it's the opposite over here. I've gone into this hole, I've gone around and through, and now remember, since I can't go to the next hole, I'm actually gonna go around the end here, like that, and go through the hole again. So then, look at that. So I've reached the end and I'm right back in the hole. You should be right back in the hole you started in. Okay. Now you can take your clamps off because your book is basically put together perfectly at this point. And what you do right here is totally up to you. You can take your needle off, of course. You can tie it together. You can add some decorative stuff. You can do all sorts of things here. The other thing I want you to kind of consider is that this is technically the right way to do it. But I'm showing you this knowing that I'm giving you permission to get creative with this. You know, there are different ways to approach this. On this book, I have some beads that are at the end of where I tied it. Technically, you could put beads right here and it wouldn't interfere with the purpose of the book. It would still lay flat. It would still serve its purpose. It would just make it a little bit more decorative. You can also consider, if you have time and maybe have like the ambition to work a little bit outside of class, you can add other pages, extra pages that have some decorative elements besides just what you're putting in there for your artwork. You can also, you know, that was technically the right way to bind it, but you can get a little bit more creative with your binding. You don't have to do it exactly how I did it. If you want it to have different colored strings and different things like that, you can certainly experiment with that. This is your piece of art. You know, you can do things to the cover if you want to. You know, on this one, I created like a frame for the title and things like that. This is your work as long as you do it intentionally and carefully. I want you to get creative with that and do what you would like to do with that. So here's our finished book, and you know, it opens up really easily. It has all of our pages. We can display our artwork with it open if we wanted to. Yeah, and it's really one of the most basic types of book, but also one of the most versatile. So yeah, if you decide to do this type of book, I hope you have fun with it.